Picture this: a chess master sits across from you, moving pieces with absolute certainty while you struggle to see 3 moves ahead. That's what life feels like when you don't understand the rules of power. But what if I told you that 500 years ago, a man decoded the exact system that separates those who control their destiny from those who are controlled by it? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll never see the world the same way again. Most people go through life wondering why things never work out the way they planned. They work hard, stay loyal, play by the rules, and yet they watch others advance while they remain stuck. They blame luck. They blame timing. They blame other people. But the real reason is simpler and more uncomfortable than they realize. They never learned the rules of power. Niccolò Machiavelli understood something that most people spend their entire lives refusing to accept. The world operates on principles that have nothing to do with fairness, morality, or what we think should happen. It operates on power dynamics, human nature, and strategic action. And those who master these principles don't just survive, they thrive, they lead, and they become unstoppable. Today, I'm going to share with you the 8 power rules that have shaped empires, built fortunes, and created legendary leaders for over 5 centuries. These aren't just theories. They're battle-tested principles that work in boardrooms, relationships, careers, and every area of life where human beings interact. But I need something from you first. If you're ready to take control of your life, if you're ready to stop being a passive participant in your own story, drop this affirmation in the comments right now: I master the rules of power. Let's begin. Rule 1. Never outshine the master. Here's a truth that will save you years of unnecessary pain. People in positions of power are far more insecure than they appear. They need to feel superior, validated, and essential. And when someone beneath them appears too talented, too smart, or too capable, it triggers something primal: fear. Think about your workplace. You've probably seen it. The employee who was brilliant, who solved problems no one else could solve, who brought innovative ideas to every meeting. And then one day, they're gone. Fired. Reassigned. Pushed out. Why? Because they made their boss feel threatened. Machiavelli observed this pattern throughout history. Kings who executed their most capable generals. CEOs who sabotage their rising stars. Parents who undermine their successful children. It happens everywhere because insecurity is universal among those who hold power. The mistake most people make is thinking that excellence alone will be rewarded. They believe that if they just work hard enough, if they just demonstrate enough skill, recognition will follow naturally. But this is naive. Power doesn't reward competence, it rewards strategic competence. So what does this mean for you? Does it mean you should hide your talents? Dim your light? Play small? Absolutely not. It means you must learn to shine in a way that makes those above you look good, not threatened. When you solve a problem, frame it as executing their vision. When you come up with an idea, present it as building on their foundation. When you achieve success, publicly credit their guidance and leadership. This isn't dishonesty, it's wisdom. You're learning to navigate power dynamics intelligently. The person who masters this rule becomes invaluable. They rise because they make everyone around them feel elevated. They advance because they're seen as loyal, capable, and non-threatening. They accumulate power quietly, without triggering the defensive mechanisms that destroy brilliant but naive people. Look at history's most successful advisors, consultants, and right-hand leaders. None of them outshone their masters publicly. They all understood that visible brilliance is dangerous, but invisible influence is unstoppable. Here's your action step. This week, when you accomplish something significant, practice giving credit strategically. Notice how people respond when you make them feel essential to your success. Notice how doors open when you stop competing for recognition and start creating it for others. Drop this affirmation in the comments: I shine strategically. Rule 2. Guard your independence at all costs. Most people trade their freedom for comfort without even realizing it. They take the job with golden handcuffs. They accept help that comes with invisible strings. They build their entire life around one relationship, one income source, one identity. And then one day, everything collapses, and they realize they built their castle on someone else's land. Machiavelli understood that dependence is the enemy of power. When you need something too badly, when you can't walk away, when you have no alternatives, you become controllable. And once you're controllable, you lose your ability to negotiate, to set boundaries, or to make decisions that truly serve you. Think about the people you know who feel trapped. The employee who hates their job but can't leave because they have no savings. The person who stays in a toxic relationship because they're financially dependent. The business owner who can't say no to a difficult client because they need the revenue. What do they all have in common? They gave away their independence. Here's what most self-help content won't tell you. Freedom isn't about positive thinking or manifestation. Freedom is about options. Real, tangible, practical options that allow you to walk away from anything that doesn't serve you. This is why the most powerful people in any field always maintain multiple income streams, multiple relationships, multiple skills, and multiple paths forward. They never allow themselves to become completely dependent on any single source of security, validation, or support. Now, I'm not saying you should trust no one or live in paranoid isolation. Relationships matter. Partnerships matter. Community matters. But dependence and interdependence are completely different things. Interdependence means you choose to collaborate from a position of strength. Dependence means you have no choice. So how do you build independence in practical terms? First, financially. Start building alternative income sources, even small ones. Save aggressively, not because you're paranoid, but because cash creates options. Invest in skills that are portable. Skills you could use in multiple industries, multiple companies, multiple contexts. Second, emotionally. Stop outsourcing your self-worth to other people's opinions. Stop needing validation from your boss, your partner, your family, or social media. Build an internal sense of worth that can't be taken away when external circumstances change. Third, strategically. Never put all your energy into one relationship, one project, one plan. Always have a backup. Always have a plan B that you're actively developing, not just theorizing about. The person who has options has power. The person who has no options has hope. And hope without options is just wishful thinking. Machiavelli wrote, "He who builds his well-being on the opinions of others builds on quicksand." Your independence is your foundation. Protect it more fiercely than you protect anything else in your life. Here's your challenge. This month, identify one area where you're overly dependent. Maybe it's financial. Maybe it's emotional. Maybe it's professional. Then take one concrete action to create an alternative. Open that savings account. Develop that side skill. Build that new relationship. Start reclaiming your independence today. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I own my freedom. Rule 3. Learn to use both the fox and the lion. Machiavelli famously wrote that a leader must be both a fox and a lion. The lion represents strength, directness, and the willingness to use force when necessary. The fox represents cunning, strategy, and the ability to navigate complex situations with intelligence rather than brute force. Most people default to one or the other. They're either too aggressive or too passive, too blunt or too manipulative, too confrontational or too accommodating. And because they only have one approach, they fail in situations that require the opposite. Think about the overly aggressive person. They bulldoze through every situation. They dominate conversations. They demand what they want. They win some battles through sheer force, but they create enemies everywhere they go. Eventually, people conspire against them, undermine them, or simply refuse to work with them. Now think about the overly passive person. They're always strategic, always calculating, always trying to maneuver around problems. They never confront issues directly. They hint, suggest, and imply, but they never take a clear stand. People lose respect for them because they appear weak, indecisive, or untrustworthy. The person who masters power understands that both approaches are tools. Sometimes you need the lion. You need to be direct, assertive, and willing to confront. Sometimes you need the fox. You need to be subtle, strategic, and willing to navigate complexity. The key is knowing which tool to use when. Use the lion when your boundaries are violated. When someone disrespects you publicly. When a situation requires immediate, decisive action. When negotiating from a position of strength. When dealing with people who only respect direct force. Use the fox when the situation is complex and layered. When you're dealing with office politics. When you're navigating a relationship that requires nuance. When you're outnumbered or outgunned and need to outthink rather than outfight. When patience and strategy will yield better long-term results than immediate confrontation. The mistake most people make is thinking they must be consistent. They believe they need to have one personality, one approach, one way of operating. But this is limiting. True power comes from adaptability. Machiavelli observed that the most successful leaders throughout history were the ones who could shift between these modes seamlessly. They could be warm and collaborative in one meeting, then cold and calculating in the next. They could be generous allies and ruthless enemies, depending on what the situation required. This doesn't make you fake or inauthentic. It makes you effective. Your values remain constant. Your principles remain intact. But your tactics must adapt to the terrain. Here's how to develop this skill. Before entering any important situation, ask yourself, does this situation require the lion or the fox? Should I be direct or subtle? Should I assert or observe? Should I push or pull? Practice both approaches deliberately. If you naturally default to aggression, practice patience and strategy. If you naturally avoid conflict, practice direct confrontation. Expand your range. Study people who do this well. Watch how effective leaders shift their approach based on context. Notice how they can be firm without being cruel, strategic without being dishonest, flexible without being weak. The person who only has a hammer sees every problem as a nail. The person who has multiple tools can build anything. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I adapt with power. Rule 4. Make people depend on you. Here's a principle that makes some people uncomfortable, but it's absolutely true. If people don't need you, they won't value you. And if they don't value you, they won't protect you, promote you, or prioritize you when difficult decisions arise. Machiavelli understood that influence comes from creating dependence. Not unhealthy dependence. Not manipulation or exploitation, but strategic positioning that makes you essential, valuable, and difficult to replace. Think about the people in your life who have real influence. Your doctor, your lawyer, your best teacher, the mentor who changed your trajectory. What do they have in common? They possess knowledge, skills, or access that you need and can't easily replace. Now think about the people who get laid off first when companies downsize. The ones who are overlooked for promotions. The ones who work hard but never advance. What do they have in common? They're replaceable. Anyone could do what they do. They never made themselves essential. This is the harsh reality of power dynamics. Fair or not, your security and advancement depend on your ability to create value that others depend on. So how do you make yourself essential without becoming manipulative? First, develop rare and valuable skills. Not just skills, rare skills. Things that most people can't or won't do. Deep technical expertise. Unique creative abilities. Specialized knowledge. The ability to solve problems that few others can solve. Second, control access to resources, information, or relationships that others need. Become the person who knows the key decision makers. The one who has the industry connections. The one who understands the systems that everyone else finds confusing. Third, position yourself as the bridge between different worlds. The person who can translate technical language into business language. The one who can navigate between departments, cultures, or generations. Bridges are powerful because both sides need them. Fourth, be the person who gets things done. Reliability is rarer than you think. In a world full of people who overpromise and underdeliver, the person who consistently executes becomes invaluable. But here's the crucial nuance. You must create dependence without creating resentment. If people feel manipulated or trapped, they'll work to eliminate their dependence on you. But if they feel served and supported, they'll actively seek to keep you close. This means sharing your knowledge generously, but not to the point where you make yourself obsolete. Teaching others, but maintaining your edge. Being helpful, but not becoming the person who does everyone else's work for free. Machiavelli wrote, "Princes should delegate unpleasant tasks to others, and keep popular functions to themselves." Applied to your life, this means, take ownership of the valuable work. The strategic work. The work that creates results people notice and appreciate. The person who makes themselves essential creates job security, negotiating power, and long-term influence. They don't have to fight for recognition. People naturally protect what they depend on. Here's your action step. Identify one skill or capability that would make you significantly more valuable in your career or relationships. Then commit to developing it over the next 90 days. Make yourself essential through genuine value creation. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I am irreplaceable. Rule 5. Reputation is your greatest asset. Your reputation enters every room before you do. It determines who trusts you, who invests in you, who wants to work with you, and who actively avoids you. And unlike money or possessions, once your reputation is damaged, it's incredibly difficult to repair. Machiavelli wrote extensively about the importance of how you're perceived. He understood that in human society, perception often matters more than reality. People act based on what they believe about you, not necessarily what's true about you. Think about two people with identical skills and identical work ethic. One has a reputation for integrity, reliability, and excellence. The other has a reputation for corner-cutting, unreliability, and mediocrity. Who gets the opportunities? Who gets trusted with important projects? Who gets recommended when someone asks for a referral? Your reputation is built through consistent patterns over time. Every interaction is a deposit or withdrawal from your reputation account. Every promise kept or broken. Every deadline met or missed. Every moment of honesty or deception. They all accumulate into the story people tell about you when you're not in the room. Here's what most people don't realize. You're building your reputation whether you're intentional about it or not. The question isn't whether people form opinions about you, they will. The question is whether you're actively shaping those opinions or leaving them to chance. So how do you build an unshakable reputation? First, become known for something specific. Don't try to be everything to everyone. Choose what you want to be famous for in your circle. Maybe it's solving difficult problems. Maybe it's bringing people together. Maybe it's having the courage to speak truth when others stay silent. Whatever it is, be so consistent in this quality that it becomes synonymous with your name. Second, guard your reputation fiercely. This means saying no to shortcuts that could damage your credibility. It means walking away from situations that would compromise your integrity. It means being willing to sacrifice short-term gains to protect your long-term standing. Third, be strategic about your associations. Machiavelli understood that you're judged by the company you keep. The people you align with, the causes you support, the groups you belong to, they all reflect on you. Choose carefully. Fourth, address attacks on your reputation immediately and decisively. When someone spreads false information about you, you can't ignore it hoping it will go away. Silence often confirms accusations. Address it clearly, factually, and then move on. Don't engage in prolonged drama, but don't let lies stand unchallenged. Fifth, remember that your reputation is built in the small moments as much as the big ones. How you treat service workers. How you respond when no one important is watching. How you handle private conversations. These moments define you because they reveal your character when there's no immediate benefit to performing. Here's a critical insight: a strong reputation creates a protective buffer. When you've built credibility over time, people give you the benefit of the doubt. When mistakes happen, and they will, people assume good intentions because your track record speaks for you. But reputation also creates vulnerability. The higher your reputation, the more valuable it becomes to those who want to tear you down. Envy, competition, and politics mean that successful people always have targets on their backs. This is why Machiavelli advised leaders to be especially careful about their public image. Every action should be considered not just for its immediate impact, but for how it will be interpreted and remembered. Think about your current reputation. If someone were describing you to a stranger, what words would they use? Is that the reputation you want? If not, you have work to do. Remember, you can't control what everyone thinks about you, and trying to please everyone will destroy your authenticity. But you can control the consistency of your character. You can control whether you keep your word. You can control how you treat people. You can control your standards. And over time, these choices create an identity that becomes your most powerful asset. Drop this affirmation in the comments: my reputation is my power. Rule 6. Timing is everything. Power without timing is just wasted effort. You can have the right strategy, the right skills, and the right intentions, but if your timing is wrong, you'll fail. And you'll watch people with inferior plans succeed simply because they acted at the right moment. Machiavelli emphasized this principle repeatedly. He studied how leaders rose and fell based on their ability to read the moment and act decisively when the window of opportunity opened. Think about the entrepreneurs who launched businesses right before a major market shift. The professionals who changed careers just as their industry was declining. The leaders who pushed for change at the exact moment when resistance was lowest. They weren't just lucky, they were reading signals and timing their moves strategically. Most people struggle with timing because they operate on either extreme. They're either too impulsive, acting without proper preparation, or too cautious, waiting for perfect conditions that never arrive. The impulsive person sees an opportunity and jumps immediately. They don't assess risks. They don't prepare properly. They don't consider whether conditions are actually favorable. They confuse speed with effectiveness and often pay the price. The cautious person analyzes endlessly. They wait for more information. They want more certainty. They convince themselves they're being strategic when they're actually being afraid. They watch opportunities pass while they're still planning. The person who masters timing operates in the space between these extremes. They prepare thoroughly so they're ready when opportunities appear. But they also act decisively when the moment arrives, even if everything isn't perfect. Here's what strategic timing looks like in practice. Know your industry's cycles. Every field has patterns. Hiring seasons. Budget cycles. Market trends. Political windows. Understanding these rhythms allows you to position yourself for maximum impact. Watch for moments of transition. When organizations restructure. when leaders change, when crises hit, when new technologies emerge. Transitions create uncertainty, and uncertainty creates opportunity for those who can act while others are paralyzed. Build relationships before you need them. Don't wait until you need a job to network. Don't wait until you need investment to build relationships with investors. Plant seeds constantly so opportunities are ready when you need them. Strike when resistance is lowest. Machiavelli understood that people resist change when they're comfortable. But in moments of crisis, pain, or transition, resistance drops. That's when you introduce new ideas, push for changes, or position yourself differently. But timing also requires patience. Sometimes the right move is to wait, to observe, to let situations develop. The person with poor timing acts too soon or too late because they don't have the discipline to do nothing until the right moment arrives. Think about chess. The amateur moves pieces constantly, creating activity without purpose. The master sometimes makes no move at all, waiting for the opponent to create a vulnerability. Then, when that opening appears, they strike decisively. Here's how to develop better timing. Study patterns in your field. Look at the last 5 years. What patterns repeat? When do opportunities typically appear? When do risks spike? Understanding history helps you anticipate the future. Practice patience. Force yourself to wait even when you feel ready to act. Get comfortable with the tension of preparation without immediate action. This builds the discipline needed for strategic timing. But also practice decisive action. When you see a clear opportunity, act quickly. Don't overthink. Don't second guess. Develop the instinct to recognize genuine opportunities and the courage to seize them. Machiavelli wrote that fortune favors the bold, but he also emphasized that boldness must be timed correctly. Charging forward at the wrong moment is not boldness, it's foolishness. True courage means acting decisively when the moment is right, even if fear tells you to wait. The person who masters timing doesn't force opportunities. They position themselves strategically and then move decisively when conditions align. They understand that success is often about being in the right place at the right time, and that both elements are within your control more than you realize. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I act with perfect timing. Rule 7. Control the narrative. Here's a truth that will change how you see the world. Reality is subjective. What matters isn't just what happens, it's the story people tell about what happens. And if you're not actively shaping that story, someone else is shaping it for you. Machiavelli understood that leaders who lost control of the narrative lost everything, even when their actions were justified. The interpretation of events matters more than the events themselves. This is why propaganda has always been a tool of power. Think about your own life. How many times has someone misinterpreted your intentions? How many times has a situation been described in a way that made you look bad, even though you acted reasonably? How many times has someone else gotten credit for your work because they told the story first or told it better? The person who controls the narrative controls perception. And perception shapes reality more powerfully than facts ever do. This doesn't mean lying. It doesn't mean manipulation. It means understanding that communication is strategic, that framing matters, and that you must be intentional about how your actions are understood and remembered. Here's how you control the narrative in your life. First, speak first. When something significant happens, especially something that could be misinterpreted, get your perspective out there before others define the situation for you. The first interpretation tends to stick. Second, frame everything strategically. How you describe a situation shapes how people perceive it. A failure can be framed as a learning experience. A conflict can be framed as standing up for principles. A change can be framed as growth rather than instability. Same facts, completely different narratives. Third, be consistent. Inconsistent messaging creates doubt. When you change your story, people assume you're hiding something or being dishonest. Find your narrative and stick to it across contexts. Fourth, use repetition. Machiavelli observed that people need to hear something multiple times before they internalize it. Don't assume people remember or understood your message the first time. Repeat your key points consistently. Fifth, control your own story. Don't let others define who you are. When someone describes you incorrectly, correct it immediately and clearly. When someone tries to frame your actions negatively, provide the context they're omitting. Don't be defensive, be factual and firm. Sixth, document everything important. In disputes about what happened, documentation wins. Emails, messages, records, they all protect you when someone tries to rewrite history. But here's the nuance. Controlling the narrative doesn't mean obsessing over what everyone thinks. It means being strategic about key moments and key audiences. It means protecting your reputation and ensuring accurate representation when it matters. Think about political leaders, corporate executives, or public figures. They don't just react to events, they actively frame them. They don't just answer questions, they redirect conversations. They don't just defend actions, they contextualize them within a larger story. You can do the same in your sphere of influence. When you present a project at work, you're not just sharing facts, you're telling a story about value created and problems solved. When you're in a relationship conflict, you're not just arguing about facts, you're framing the situation in a way that reflects your perspective. The person who masters this understands that every conversation is an opportunity to shape perception. Not through manipulation, but through clear, strategic communication that ensures their perspective is understood and remembered. Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are." This means your reputation is built more on perception than reality. And if you're not actively managing that perception, you're leaving your future to chance. Here's your challenge. This week, pay attention to how you're being described or referenced by others. Are people characterizing you accurately? Are they attributing the right motivations to your actions? If not, correct the narrative clearly but without defensiveness. Drop this affirmation in the comments: I control my story. Rule 8. Never reveal all your cards. The final rule might be the most important of all. In a world where oversharing is normalized, where people broadcast every thought and plan, where transparency is treated as a virtue without question, the person who understands power knows better. Mystery creates respect. Restraint creates influence. Selective disclosure creates strategic advantage. Machiavelli observed that the most powerful people throughout history maintained an element of unpredictability. People couldn't fully read them, couldn't fully anticipate them, couldn't fully manipulate them because they never knew everything. Think about the people who overshare. They tell everyone their plans before executing. They reveal their insecurities openly. They broadcast their strategies to competitors. They make themselves completely transparent. And then they wonder why nothing ever works out as planned. Here's why revealing everything hurts you. When people know your plans, they can interfere with them. Competition can adjust. Obstacles can be placed in your path. Others can position themselves to benefit from your work. When people know your weaknesses, they can exploit them. Negotiations become one-sided. Manipulations become easier. Your vulnerabilities become weapons in others' hands. When people know your decision-making process, they can manipulate your choices. They know exactly what to say, how to pressure you, which buttons to push to get what they want. When people know everything about you, they lose interest. Mystery creates curiosity. Curiosity creates attention. Attention creates influence. So what does strategic discretion look like? Keep your plans private until they're executed. Don't announce what you're going to do, just do it. Let results speak for themselves. This protects you from interference and makes your successes more impressive because no one saw them coming. Share strategically, not emotionally. Before revealing anything significant, ask yourself, who benefits from knowing this? What advantage do I gain by sharing? What risks am I creating? If the answers don't favor you, stay silent. Master the art of the non-answer. When people ask probing questions, you don't have to lie, you can redirect. I'm still exploring options. It's too early to say. I prefer to keep that private. These responses maintain boundaries without creating conflict. Build multiple layers to your personality. Have a public self that people see in professional contexts. Have a private self for close relationships. Have an inner self that only you fully understand. This isn't being fake, it's understanding that different contexts require different levels of disclosure. Never reveal your limits. When negotiating, never tell someone your maximum budget, your minimum acceptable outcome, or your deadline pressure. Keep your constraints private. This preserves negotiating power. Don't explain yourself constantly. The person who justifies every decision appears insecure. The person who acts without lengthy explanations appears confident. Sometimes, because I chose to, is the only explanation needed. But here's the crucial balance. Strategic discretion isn't the same as dishonesty. You don't lie. You don't manipulate. You simply recognize that not everyone is entitled to full access to your thoughts, plans, or inner world. Machiavelli wrote about the importance of appearing one way while being another. This makes people uncomfortable, but it's deeply practical. You can be kind while being strategic, warm while being careful, open while being selective. Think about the people you find most intriguing. They probably share this quality. You never quite know everything about them. They're engaging, but slightly mysterious. Friendly, but with clear boundaries. This combination creates magnetic presence. The person who reveals everything has no leverage, no mystique, no strategic advantage. They become predictable, and predictable people are easy to outmaneuver. The person who reveals nothing becomes isolated and suspicious. They create distance that prevents genuine connection and collaboration. The person who masters this balance shares enough to build trust, connection, and collaboration, but maintains enough privacy to preserve strategic advantage, personal boundaries, and that essential element of mystery that keeps people engaged. Practice this starting today. When you feel the urge to overshare, pause. Ask yourself if disclosure serves you or just satisfies an emotional impulse. Learn to be comfortable with not explaining everything. Get used to letting people wonder about you. Drop this affirmation in the comments. My mystery is my strength. Conclusion. Becoming unstoppable. You now understand the 8 power rules that have shaped leaders for centuries. Never outshine the master. Guard your independence. Use both the fox and the lion. Make people depend on you. Protect your reputation. Master timing. Control the narrative. Never reveal all your cards. But knowledge without action is worthless. The question isn't whether these rules work. History proves they do. The question is whether you'll apply them. Machiavelli didn't create these principles. He observed them. He showed you how power actually works, not how we wish it worked. He gave you the blueprint. Now it's up to you to use it. Start today. Choose one rule and practice it this week. As it becomes natural, add another. Over time, these principles become who you are. The person who masters these rules doesn't just survive, they dominate. They don't react to circumstances, they shape them. Nothing can defeat you when you understand how power actually works. If this video opened your eyes, hit that like button and subscribe for more insights on mastering personal power. Share this with someone ready to stop being naive and start operating strategically. Most importantly, take action. Test these principles. Observe the results. Your transformation begins with the choices you make today. Drop this final affirmation in the comments. I master the rules of power. Nothing can defeat me. The game is already being played around you. The only choice is whether you play it consciously or remain a pawn in someone else's strategy. Choose power. Choose awareness. Choose mastery. Your unstoppable life starts now.